Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. This is where right and left come to try to be reasonable. Now, tonight we have new information about the January 6th bomber suspect. Of course, that's what should matter most, right? The reporting about this suspect shows exactly how common this homegrown threat of political violence through actions on extreme thought is getting. But we've been distracted from that story by another major threat: manufactured division, as evidenced by the FBI's number 1 and 2 pretending they solved the January 6th bomber case when they were two of the most outspoken conspiracists that the bomber would never be found because it was an inside job. People see the obvious hypocrisy at play here, like I do, and they don't want to let it go. But let me be clear about a couple of things, okay? I'm not looking for scalps. I'm not about rage bait. I see an opportunity to help expose what is wrong with our politics and an opportunity to get somewhere better. But that is not easy, right? Nobody wants to ever admit any kind of weakness because you guys will, the social media world will kill you for it. So today, Patel and Bongino doubled down, because that's what you do, right? Bongino posted, "I was today years old when I discovered media figures were unaware that I was a political opinion commentator before my tenure here." The message seems to be that what he used to say was just entertainment. Now, that's not my opinion. It's his.
You put a post on X right after this happened, and you said there's a massive cover-up because the person that planted those pipe bombs, they don't want you to know who it is because it's either a connected anti-Trump insider or an inside job.
I was paid in the past, Sean, for my opinions. That's clear, and one day I'll be back in that space. But that's not what I'm paid for now. I'm paid to be your deputy director, and we base investigations on facts.
On facts. But so he didn't used to do that. Because he used to say he said, he knew, he heard, right? So I hope you all take that in. Everything they were telling you about Epstein, about January 6th, about the deep state, about the elections, all those things that got your blood boiling, they were doing it for entertainment purposes. That's the new excuse. And Patel is now the number 1 at the FBI, and he's still doing it. He went on with the president's son as the head of the FBI and still played to conspiracies that the guy they just discovered was being covered up, which he absolutely knows to be false. Now, unlike a lot of other critics, I'm not coming at these guys to take them down. I want the fakery to stop, and they are in a very unique position. They are guys who were part of the pod problem, who now have power to call it out and be about something different. Full disclosure, I met Dan Bongino. I liked him. And now he is in a position like Patel. But by the way, I don't think Patel has the stones that Dan Bongino does to own this and to be about something bigger than just a little bit of shame, okay? At a minimum, I believe that both of them owe it to the president, if not to the people. By refusing to acknowledge all the stuff that he and Patel sold about Epstein and the January 6th and a lot of other things, they're putting the president in a bad spot. President Trump is forced to own what they refuse to. That is not fair to the president. He gifted them with jobs, and it is doing a disservice to the president's ability to get things done for the American people. For example, the president is going on an affordability tour starting next week. I think this could be the most important moment of this administration to date. But the conversation that we should be having is likely going to be derailed by the deceptions of his disciples. That's not fair to the president, and it's not fair to you, who absolutely cares more about affordability than any of this other stuff. There was no good reason for these two to pretend that Biden hid who this guy was. I don't think that explains the delay. I don't believe this was discovered by some new team, and I do believe they are intentionally disrespecting the men and women at the FBI who did the work that led to this guy's capture, okay? Now, in terms of who's making things up, they did, not people at the FBI. Not President Biden. Remember, the FBI was led during his administration by Christopher Wray, the guy that Trump picked in his first administration. It's a fact these two chose to ignore, and you know why. Because they always ignore facts when it doesn't suit their misinformation. And again, I disagree with people who say Bongino, Patel, Hegseth. I don't think they're the same. The Secretary of War is a much more complicated and contrived situation, and he has a much higher degree of compunction. I get why people are hunting his scalp. I don't think that should be the importance of the moment. I think it should be about Congress taking power over military action from the presidency. But I'll just say this. Secretary Hegseth is really lucky that President Trump has a tendency to stand by his people if his opponents call for their heads. But the FBI bros, they can come clean and get a win. They can stick a fork in all the social media rage bait. They can own their role and say, look, I know what they're doing. I was doing it. And be part of leading with facts and lean into how they got this guy. And what we know about him, which we're going to do in a moment anyway, because this is the #1 national security threat, homegrown extremism. And I know that they get it, okay? Because they know the price that President Trump has been forced to pay for the Epstein files. They created them as a boogeyman. It's now blown up on the president and put him in a terrible position. And now the FBI is doing all this redacting on the Epstein files that almost certainly is going to hatch a secondary scandal. Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.